For thousands of years, astrology has been a guiding force for humanity, offering insights into personality traits, future events, and the connection between the cosmos and individual lives. But today, astrology is often dismissed as pseudoscience by the scientific community. So, why was astrology, once revered in many ancient cultures, suppressed by modern science? Was there ever a time when the study of the stars and their influence on life was taken seriously? And what led to the dramatic shift away from astrology as a legitimate field of study? In this video, we will explore the fascinating history of astrology, its deep connection to ancient civilizations, and why it became marginalized by modern science. We'll take a closer look at the cultural, intellectual, and social forces that shaped astrology's rise and fall and why, despite its suppression, astrology continues to captivate millions of people around the world today. Let us dive into this captivating journey through history and explore how the celestial science was once revered, and how it eventually came to be seen as nothing more than superstition. Astrology dates back over 4,000 years, with its origins rooted in ancient civilizations such as the Babylonians, Egyptians, and Greeks. These early cultures believed that the movements of the planets and stars had a profound impact on human affairs and the natural world. For instance, the Babylonians developed an early form of astrology known as mundane astrology, which was used to predict political and military events, while the Egyptians used astrology to determine auspicious times for agricultural activities. In ancient Greece, astrology gained significant intellectual weight when philosophers like Pythagoras and Plato acknowledged the influence of celestial bodies on human life. Plato, for example, was known to integrate astrology into his philosophical system, believing that the movements of the planets and stars could reveal important truths about the nature of the soul. By the time of the Hellenistic period, astrology had become an integral part of Greco-Roman thought, influencing everything from political decisions to medical practices. Throughout the Middle Ages, astrology remained closely tied to science and was considered a crucial branch of knowledge. Astrologers were highly regarded in courtly and academic circles, and many renowned figures, such as Johannes Kepler, Tycho Brahe, and even Galileo Galilei, dabbled in astrology alongside their contributions to the development of modern science. Astrologers were seen as experts in predicting everything from natural disasters to the outcomes of wars and royal succession. However, by the time the Renaissance gave way to the Enlightenment in the 17th century, science began to embrace a more empirical, experimental approach. This shift was characterized by a growing desire to base knowledge on observable and repeatable phenomena rather than mystical or spiritual explanations. It was during this period that astrology began to be increasingly sidelined, as the scientific community started to prioritize observation, mathematics, and the development of theories that could be tested. The rise of rationalism and empiricism, championed by philosophers like René Descartes and Isaac Newton, marked the beginning of astrology's decline as a respected field of study. Newton, often seen as the father of modern physics, famously rejected the idea that the stars had any significant influence on human behavior. As science began to separate itself from religious and mystical beliefs, astrology was increasingly viewed as unscientific, as it failed to meet the rigorous standards of observation and repeatability that were becoming the foundation of scientific inquiry. Astrology's suppression by modern science can be understood in the context of the intellectual and philosophical transformations that defined the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment. Before these movements, astrology was closely tied to astronomy, and the two disciplines were often considered part of the same body of knowledge. For example, astrologers often relied on the same astronomical data used by astronomers to predict the movements of the planets. In fact, many of the early astronomers were also astrologers. However, the shift in the scientific community's approach to knowledge created a divide between astrology and astronomy. The rise of the scientific method and approach that emphasized empirical observation, experimentation, and logical reasoning led to a redefinition of what constituted legitimate knowledge. Astrologers, who often relied on interpretive and symbolic methods, were increasingly viewed as relying on mystical or speculative thinking rather than objective observation and reason. One of the main reasons astrology was suppressed was its failure to meet the criteria of the scientific method. Unlike modern sciences, which rely on observable, measurable data, astrology is based on an ancient system of symbolic correspondences between celestial bodies and earthly events. Astrology posits that the positions of planets, stars, and other celestial bodies can influence human lives, but it lacks the empirical evidence needed to validate these claims. Despite its long history, astrology has not been able to demonstrate a cause and effect relationship between celestial movements and human behavior in a way that satisfies the scientific community. Furthermore, many of the techniques used in astrology, such as the interpretation of planetary aspects or the casting of horoscopes, are based on belief systems and traditions that have not changed much over thousands of years. This lack of innovation and failure to adapt to modern scientific thinking contributed to the marginalization of astrology. While astronomy evolved into a rigorous, data-driven science that could make precise predictions, astrology remained rooted in symbolic and interpretive practices that appeared increasingly outdated in comparison. As the scientific community progressed, other fields, such as physics and biology, began to make rapid advancements based on the principles of observation and experimentation. These fields demonstrated the power of scientific reasoning and, by contrast, further highlighted the lack of objective evidence supporting astrology's claims. Astrology's reliance on mystical forces, such as the belief in celestial influence over human destiny, became increasingly at odds with the emerging worldview of science, which was based on natural laws and observable phenomena. The intellectual suppression of astrology was not just about the scientific method, it was also about the changing worldview that science brought with it. The scientific revolution and the Enlightenment fostered a belief in a rational, predictable universe governed by natural laws. This worldview left little room for the mystical, spiritual, or supernatural explanations that had once been at the heart of astrology. As reason and empiricism took center stage, mystical and unprovable ideas were seen as outdated or even dangerous. In addition to this intellectual shift, the rise of religious and political movements also played a role in astrology's suppression. During the Enlightenment, many thinkers embraced secularism and sought to distance themselves from religious dogma and mysticism. Astrology, with its ties to ancient spiritual beliefs and its association with mysticism, was increasingly seen as incompatible with the new emphasis on reason and scientific inquiry. One of the most prominent figures in the campaign to suppress astrology was the philosopher Immanuel Kant. Kant's work in the 18th century helped solidify the idea that knowledge must be based on empirical evidence, and that anything that could not be scientifically proven was to be regarded with skepticism. As more philosophers and scientists adopted this stance, astrology became increasingly marginalized. Instead of being seen as a legitimate field of study, astrology came to be viewed as superstition, akin to belief in witchcraft or alchemy. Despite the rise of skepticism towards astrology, its influence never fully disappeared. In the 20th century, astrology experienced a resurgence, particularly in the form of horoscopes in newspapers and magazines. Many people began to turn to astrology as a source of comfort, guidance, and entertainment. However, its rise in popularity did not lead to a reappraisal of its scientific validity. Instead, astrology was often dismissed as pseudoscience, with its resurgence seen as a symptom of society's ongoing search for meaning in an increasingly uncertain world. While astrology is not widely accepted within the scientific community, it continues to thrive in popular culture. Whether viewed as a form of entertainment or as a tool for self-reflection, astrology's enduring appeal speaks to a deep-seated human desire to connect with the cosmos and find meaning in the stars. Despite being suppressed by science, astrology remains a powerful force in many people's lives, offering a different lens through which to view the mysteries of existence. Astrology may have been suppressed by modern science, but it is still widely practiced and remains relevant to many people today. Whether you approach astrology as a spiritual tool, a method of self-reflection, or simply as an interesting aspect of culture, there are ways to incorporate it into your life. 1. One of the most practical applications of astrology is in personal development. By analyzing your astrological birth chart, you can gain insights into your strengths, weaknesses, personality traits, and life purpose. Many people find astrology to be a helpful tool for understanding themselves better and making decisions that align with their true nature. 2. Astrology is often used to analyze compatibility between individuals. By comparing birth charts, you can explore the dynamics between you and others, whether in romantic relationships, friendships, or professional settings. Astrology can offer valuable perspectives on how to navigate challenges and deepen connections with others. 3. Astrology has long been used to determine the most favorable times for making important decisions, such as starting a new business, getting married, or making a big move. By looking at the positions of the planets, astrologers can suggest optimal timing based on astrological transits and cycles. 4. For many people, astrology provides a way to connect with a deeper sense of spirituality and meaning. By contemplating the celestial movements and their potential influence on your life, you can engage in introspection and find guidance for navigating life's challenges. Astrology's rise and subsequent suppression by science is a fascinating story of how human understanding of the universe has evolved over time. Once regarded as a legitimate field of study, astrology was eventually sidelined in favor of more empirical, scientific approaches to understanding the world. Yet, despite its suppression, astrology continues to captivate millions, offering a way for people to connect with the cosmos, explore their personal journeys, and seek meaning in a complex world. Whether viewed as science or superstition, astrology remains an enduring part of human culture. Its resilience in the face of scientific skepticism suggests that it fulfills a deep need within us, a desire to understand our place in the vast, mysterious universe. Astrology may have been suppressed by science, but it's far from forgotten. Its influence lingers, inviting us to explore the mysteries of the stars, the universe, and ourselves.